Hello and a very warm welcome. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the architecture of modern medical education. We're looking at the leadership blueprint for a brand new, integrated curriculum, and we'll be exploring the two absolutely pivotal roles that guide students from the quiet of the lecture hall to the controlled chaos of a hospital ward. Right, let's start with the big problem, and this quote just nails it. You see, the world of medicine is in the middle of this massive information explosion. There's just this tidal wave of new knowledge coming out so fast that the old way of doing things, packing students into a room and just talking at them for 6 years, it's not just a bit old-fashioned. It's completely broken. It's impossible and, well, it's just not fair to even try. So this is the puzzle, isn't it? How on earth do you train doctors to be learners for life, ready to deal with a world where the science is always shifting under their feet? This is exactly why places like the University of Duhok, whose internal documents we're looking at today, are basically tearing up the old rulebook and starting from scratch. Okay, so here's what's on the cards. We'll kick off with the new blueprint itself. Then we'll look at the two big phases of a student's journey. We'll meet the leaders in charge of each part, properly compare what they do, and then figure out what it all tells us about being a leader in medicine today. So the solution they've landed on is something called an integrated curriculum. Now, instead of teaching subjects in their own little boxes, anatomy over here, biochemistry over there, this whole model weaves them all together. It connects the deep science to actual clinical problems right from day one. The whole idea is to make learning stick. And this whole 6-year journey is split neatly in two. Phase 1, that's the first 3 years, is all about laying down a rock-solid scientific foundation. Then you've got Phase 2, the final 3 years, where it's all about taking that science and using it in the real world of clinical practice. It's a really logical move from knowing the what to knowing the how. And I find this really interesting, how they think about the identity of each phase. You see, Phase 1 is all about turning a student into a scientist, someone who gets the deep why behind a disease. But then, Phase 2 takes that scientist and forges them into a practitioner, someone who knows how to actually treat it. It's a brilliant way of looking at it. And the people in charge of this whole grand design? Well, they're the phase coordinators. You can think of them as the architects of this whole blueprint. Each one is responsible for building one half of the final product, a doctor who's ready for anything. So let's kick off with the architect of those first 3 years, the Phase 1 coordinator. Their job is to make sure that the foundation of this entire structure isn't just good, it's absolutely bomb-proof. And the goal here is crystal clear. The Phase 1 coordinator's entire mission is to make sure every student walking out of year 3 has this incredibly strong, joined-up understanding of the medical sciences. If they get this part wrong, the whole building is at risk of coming down later. The stakes are really high. So what's actually in the job description for this Phase 1 leader? Well, let's have a look. First up, they have to lead the committee of module leaders. Now, this is more than just running meetings. It's about getting different departments to talk to each other, making sure what's taught in cardiology links up with respiratory, for example. Next, supervise teaching quality. This means they're the ones checking if the teaching is actually any good, pushing for new methods beyond just boring old lectures. Then they have to develop the curriculum framework. That's the big picture stuff, mapping out the whole 3-year plan. Propose resource allocation. That means they're the one fighting for money for better labs or more tutors. Reviewing changes means they act as a gatekeeper, making sure any change is for the student's benefit. And finally, they have to report all this back to the big bosses on the curriculum committee. Keep these duties in mind, because they're going to pop up again. Okay, let's jump forward now to the second half of the journey and meet the Phase 2 coordinator. This is where everything changes. We're moving out of the predictable classroom and into the messy, unpredictable world of real patient care. The goal for this leader is totally different. It's about taking that scientist we made in Phase 1 and shaping them into a confident, capable doctor. This is where the rubber hits the road, turning all that book knowledge into actual skills, good judgment, and the ability to talk to patients, all inside a busy, real-life hospital. And the instructions for this role? Well, first, they lead the committee of block leaders. These aren't academics. They're senior doctors running wards. The coordinator has to juggle the schedules of busy hospitals. Supervised teaching quality here means making sure a consultant running between patients still gives good bedside teaching. Develop the curriculum framework means planning the hospital placements. Propose resource allocation might be arguing for access to high-tech simulation centers. Reviewing changes could mean rearranging everything because a ward suddenly closes. And yep, they report it all back to the curriculum committee. Now, if that list of duties is giving you a bit of déjà vu, you're not wrong. And that brings us right to the heart of what we're talking about today. We've got two leaders with what look like identical job descriptions. But the really fascinating bit is when you look past the paper and see what's happening in practice. So let's just ask the question straight out. Their job descriptions are almost mirror images of each other. So are these two roles really the same, or is there something fundamental that the paperwork just doesn't capture? And this just lays it out perfectly. When you put their main duties side by side, they are functionally identical. Leadership, quality control, development, resources, reporting. The names change a bit, module leaders versus block leaders, but the actual job described, it's exactly the same. So here's the twist. The huge difference between these two leaders isn't in their to-do list. It's not about what they do. The massive difference is where they have to do it. It's all about the context. I mean, just think about it for a second. The Phase 1 coordinator lives in a structured, predictable world of academia. Timetables are fixed, their personnel are lecturers whose main job is to teach, but the Phase 2 coordinator, they operate in the frantic, often chaotic world of a working hospital. Their classroom is a busy ward where a lesson can be cut short by a medical emergency. Their teachers are working doctors for whom teaching is something they squeeze in between saving lives. It's one thing to manage a timetable, it's another thing entirely to manage an education in the middle of all that. Same job, two completely different universes. And this comparison gives us such a powerful insight into what real leadership looks like in education today. It is about so much more than just ticking boxes on a piece of paper. And this is the main takeaway, really. Real leadership isn't about the skills you have written on your CV. It's about being able to adapt and apply those skills in a specific, often very challenging environment. The blueprint might be the same, but the art of building is completely different depending on the terrain. So you can almost boil this down to a simple 3-step playbook for this kind of leadership. First, you've got to master the blueprint. You have to know your job inside and out. That's a given. Second, and this is the really clever bit, you have to adapt to the environment. You have to understand that how you do your job changes completely depending on if you're in a classroom or a clinic. It's about being flexible. And third, you always focus on the outcome. Every single decision has to serve that one ultimate goal, creating a safe, brilliant, and compassionate doctor. And that really just leaves us with one final thought. This idea of adapting a core blueprint to a dynamic world, well, that's not just about medicine, is it? It applies everywhere. So think about your own professional world for a moment. What's the blueprint for leadership where you are? And more importantly, how do you have to adapt it to the real world every single day?